Courageous love now. Courageous love now. Courageous love now. Welcome back, beautiful people, to Courageous Love Now podcast. And we are entering episode number 5 with Courageous Lara and my first guest, Evan McDermod. Before we get into the show, I just want to say thank you so much for all of you who have been tuning in and listening to this journey of Courageous Love Now. If you would like to, it would be so helpful to subscribe to my podcast, to review, leave a comment. All input is welcome. Also, you can find me on Instagram under Courageous Love Now. And you can also find on my website, which is harmonize1.com/podcast. And there you will find Courageous Love Now and all of the episodes available on my website with more information about Lara Helena. That's me, Courageous Lara from Courageous Love Now. So with all that being said, thanks again for being here. I hope you enjoy this very fun and rich conversation. Let's get into the show. So, hi guys. Welcome to Courageous Love Now podcast with Lara Helena here, ready to sow some seeds of hope. And I have the great pleasure to welcome my first guest of my first interview of podcast, Evan McDermod. And he has a podcast called The Fifth Dimension. And I would love to give you a little bio of Evan, and he can fill in all of the colors later. But Evan McDermod is a teacher, a healer, and a conscious explorer. And in June of 2017, Evan experienced what can only be described as a quantum spiritual awakening. Upon analyzing his life situation, he realized he was not living to his highest potential and true purpose. And since, Evan has dedicated his life to making the world a better place. He realizes his true purpose is to reconnect people with the interconnectivity that exists between all of life. We all have a purpose inside of us, a unique talent that can be used to help the greater good. And in sharing about Evan, I discovered Evan's podcast while I was in Denmark in the fall of last year. And I came across it while looking for 5D. I was researching 3D, 4D, 5D, and trying to understand all of this. And his popped up, and I started listening. And I was like, wow, I really resonate with this guy. He's definitely got a lot of things that are very true and authentic to me. And here I am after having my journey of starting a podcast, having him as my first guest on my show. So this is so exciting for me. So welcome, Evan. Yay!
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I feel honored to be your first guest. Like, that like warms my heart. So I'm excited to be here, to chat with you. I mean, you came on my podcast and we just had a fun time and it was a great conversation.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
ready to just keep the ball rolling. And you knocked out of the park my life story. So we'll see if I have anything left to say. Like that was the whole bio.
Well, it was. I mean, I read it off of your website, so there you go. But no, I mean, following you online, and of course, seeing like that you're an author, you have your podcast, you've recently published your first book, which is, I really want to talk about that today too. The Story of Interconnectivity, which is available. We can plug all that later, but I did get a chance to listen to your podcast that introduces the first 2 chapters, and I absolutely love that. So yeah, we definitely have to touch on that today.
Awesome.
So yeah, Evan has been also a big, I would say, an inspiration to me starting my podcast, because I really, I would say, vibe and connected with his authenticity and his just kind of like raw pureness. And for me, I was just like, if I was going to do a podcast, I would like it to come across like that. And I really just want to say thank you. So for being a little mentor for me.
I'm happy to. I mean, I feel honored. And I
Yeah.
would say definitely your podcast it has that authenticity, it has that rawness. Like I hear
Hmm.
it and I resonate with your message. So I mean, it's a
Yeah.
fantastic start, and I'm excited to see how it
Awesome.
continues.
Me too. Me too. So, yeah, where should we start? Oh my goodness. I want
Oh,
to know more about your journey. I mean, obviously, I gave a little bit of the bio here, but like, how did you get started into doing a podcast? Let's start there.
yes. I mean, with the podcast, it was something that I had always like thought about doing. I mean, when I first went to college, I actually went for broadcast journalism because I was interested in broadcasting. I mean, my dad did radio his whole life, so I was
Oh,
always
wow.
very like intrigued by the idea of just like
Hmm.
I don't know, getting on the airwaves. I guess it's maybe genetics, but um, I would say for the longest time, and then after, like mentioned, sort of the awakening that happened. Like
Mm.
I took this trip to Costa Rica, and I think this is a good like preface for it because without this, there would be no fifth dimension. Maybe there'd be something else, but I don't wouldn't be this. So, but I definitely had this realization that there was something deeper to what I was living. Like I was very living a surface level, attached to
Mhm.
all sorts of identity and desire, and I was drinking every weekend. I was in college, so it was living the party life in college, and I was in an unfulfilling relationship, and there was just all these different facets of my life where I realized I was content with misery, and it was kind of all I had
Mhm.
known. And
Mhm.
so over the next couple of years, like I really began exploring different spiritual topics, really began exploring like who it was that I am. And
Mhm.
it was probably 2 years after that, I had this, thought. I was like, I feel like I have something to say. And I used to always struggle to speak up. I was very shy in school. I didn't have a
Mhm.
lot of
Mhm.
friends. I had a close circle of like, I don't know, I would say 5 or 6 close friends, but most of the
Mhm.
school, like I was kind of under the radar. Like I didn't speak up a lot. And so it was kind of a opportunity for me to just sort of speak my voice. And that was what
Mm.
the intention was going into it. And it's interesting because, now my podcast I feel is very much in alignment with my purpose. Like you mentioned when you're
Yeah.
reading the bio, like helping people connect with deeper parts of them. When I
Yeah.
started the podcast, I didn't have that like in my radar at all. Actually, like
Really?
I was just trying to like if anything, if I look back on the podcast, I'm at about I just published episode 117 yesterday, and
What was the date of your first podcast? When did you actually
Uh,
launch it?
it was November of 2019, early November
Okay.
2019. So I mean,
Okay.
still was like
Yeah.
a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
And if you look
But
back at
also a
sort of,
year after your awakening, you would say
well,
too, like
right,
a good
right, a
year
couple of years
plus. Yeah.
after,
A
there was
couple of years. Yeah.
couple of
Yeah.
years where I was still very much just exploring. And without that
Mhm.
period of exploration, I mean, there wouldn't have really been a foundation for the podcast. So there was a bunch of
Mhm.
lessons and growth and parts of myself that I had explored. And this was sort of the
Mhm.
beginning of me to express this sort of new uh, way of being that I was attempting to encompass. But over the
Mhm.
course of the journey of the podcast, I'm looking back at it and realizing all of the different interviews I'd had and all of the sort of topics I was covering were really lessons that I was learning and integrating as I was doing the podcast.
As
Like
you were going.
I would
Yeah.
invite somebody on and they would give me some sort of insight or that would just really resonate and I would be able to grow from that. And so it's really
Mhm.
encompassed my own journey of awakening and understanding.
Mm.
And I feel like now and obviously this journey continues. It's lifelong. You
Yeah.
never truly uh,
Yeah.
reach an endpoint, but I feel like now I've have that solid foundation and it's, you know, kind of taken a life of its own, if you will. And
Yeah.
it's really my creative baby because before that,
Totally.
I didn't view myself as creative. I didn't view like I viewed myself as
Yeah.
sort of that ordinary, which is very much a societal norm.
Yeah.
But it really was sort of the beginning of me fully becoming me and expressing
Mhm.
that confidently because I
Mhm.
definitely did not have that. It wasn't something that I knew how to do. I never had the, I guess, role models to tell me that it was okay to speak up
Mhm.
and be
Mhm.
myself. And it's. it's been a wonderful journey. And now I just feel like I'm at a point where I'm talking to people I couldn't even imagine. Like I just had David Icke on
Right.
the show, and it's like,
So amazing.
even 6 or 7 months ago, I would have been like, well, now that's a dream guest. So it's just kind of
Yeah.
continually growing and evolving as I do the same. And I feel like really the sky's the limit with it. And I'm just
Yeah.
excited to have the opportunity to have a platform and be able
Yeah.
to hopefully people can listen and take something from it. That's really my end
Yeah.
goal. So
Well, in diving back to 2017 and like, I mean, just listening to what you shared, I mean, it must have taken a lot of courage also to like take that path because as you said, you had like a routine that you'd been on being in college, partying every weekend, and you have this awakening. And then you're kind of like, okay, and I know for myself and the journeys I've had through my life with numerous awakenings, it's like,
yeah,
okay, now what do I do with this? Right. So
yeah,
what do I do with this? How do I manifest this? How do I embody it? Right. And I think that that's like so much this spiritual warrior journey, right? It's like, how do I now take this new like paradigm that I'm living in and really like live it? And I
right,
think that we continue to do that. I know at least for myself, I have, and I would love to just know a little bit of your journey of like maybe those first couple of years of like, what kind of stuff were you reading? What, what did
yeah,
it, was it something like an ayahuasca journey you did, or was it just something that hit you? Like, please share
right.
a little more
Oh,
if you
oh,
like, of
definitely. I'd
course.
happy to. So the actual, like, I would say, trigger of the awakening, like what caused it,
Mm,
was I was in college and there was this course that was being offered in Costa Rica, and it was an intro to counseling course. So,
mhm.
and I took it with two things in mind. I was like, one, I get to go to Costa Rica. That's going to be amazing. Let's definitely sign up for that. I needed a college I needed a summer credit anyways. So I was like, all right, this will sort of meet my credit requirements. And I was going into teaching at this point. Like I had transferred to a different
Mm,
university and was getting my teaching degree, and I had 1 year left. And I thought, well, if I can learn some basics of counseling, if I can learn about, how to essentially be there for somebody else, I think that could
mhm,
really benefit in a teaching practice. And
mhm.
really what ended up happening was I went on this course and it uprooted my entire foundation of who I thought I was, because with counseling you are exploring what is the self, who are
Right.
you, what is it that makes up your being. And I had never even thought to ask those questions. Like that never was even on my radar. And so
Fantastic.
and
Yeah.
and we had it was 2 weeks of like integrative practices, and it was with a beautiful group of people, and every single person on that trip I am still deeply like connected with. And there's a few that are
Mm,
like, lifelong friends, and even the ones that I haven't talked to in a while, I still view as like a lifelong friends. There's like that bonding.
mhm.
And upon returning, it was like, okay, it's I haven't been on an ayahuasca ceremony, but I understand that when you return from that, you get back and it's like back to real life. It was very much that experience of like,
Right.
okay, now what do I do? And
Yeah.
I had 1 more year of college left, and I was in a relationship I wasn't very happy with, and before the trip, I was thinking of kind of ending it anyways. And
Mhm,
so I just decided to start making difficult decisions and decided to start just exploring. And I was,
mhm,
reading and listening to Ram Dass. I think Be Here Now was the first
mhm.
one. Somebody on the trip recommended Be Here Now. And
Yes.
that was the first book I bought upon returning. And I read through
Awesome.
that like a pariah. And I've read through it multiple
Mhm,
times and always pick up something from it.
mhm.
But I read another big important one was the Four Agreements, Don Miguel
Mhm.
Ruiz. And I was
Fantastic.
trying to spend time embodying those qualities within myself. Like, how can I
Mhm,
really live this? And over those
mhm,
2 years, it was not easy at all, actually.
mhm,
And if anything, it was my last year in college. Like, I was still going out and partying and like having a good time, but every time I did, I would feel more unfulfilled
mhm,
afterwards, and there would be almost more of like an internal void that was like
mhm,
within myself. And I talk about a void in the book that I just wrote because I felt that within myself. Like it was so
mhm,
prevalent. Like there was something that was missing. It's like, what am I not getting here? It's like everybody else around me is sort of living a similar lifestyle, I feel like, or is sort of content, at least on the
mhm,
surface, with this way of being, and everyone is content with consuming and just materialism and just happy with uh,
Hmm.
what is it? Just a surface level existence, and not ask. I didn't
Of
have
what is,
of
right.
what is right, and I didn't
Hmm.
have. I certainly had the community from the Costa Rica trip to have deeper conversations with, but most of the people that I would interact with on a daily basis, I couldn't really have those in-depth conversations. Um, but at the same time, I started engaging with psychedelics, so I would explore, and I would do it with people on occasion, but I actually found the most benefit from solo trips because I could really
Hmm.
dedicate my focus to trying to
Very
understand
specific
myself better.
things.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it was over those 2 years, it was about me really exploring what practices work best for me. Like, how can I sort of optimize my own uh, living, I guess. But at the same
Hmm.
time, I would say there was definitely like a dark night of the soul in there too, where it's like, am I
Hmm.
losing my mind? Like, what is going
Hmm.
on? So,
Hmm.
it was just a journey that I felt it was there was so much growth and so much learning, even though it was
Hmm.
difficult. And eventually it was probably about 3 or 4 months before I actually started my podcast, I decided to head on out to California. My brother was living on
Hmm.
out there, and I was in Orange County. And being there and being in a whole new scenery, I viewed it as an opportunity to almost sort of reset and
Hmm.
restart. And
Yeah.
ever since then, I've found that, because of their going out there, I was able to really find and put into practice what works best for me, and, put
Hmm.
up new boundaries that I was too afraid to integrate and
Hmm.
test against people that I had previously known. It's like, are they going to accept these
Yeah.
boundaries? I can just go out there, set my own boundaries, and I can,
Right.
start exploring creatively, which is why I started the podcast. And
Yeah.
it was a two
And did
years of oh you
no,
can
no,
ask.
no. I was just going to ask, did you, I mean, of course, all of this exploration was for your further development and understanding of like all of this that you were discovering, right? So it's
Yeah,
kind of like folding onto itself. But did you have from the beginning that real call of like, I want to have a purpose. I want to be able to give back. Did you have that like already like opening up to like, what can I bring humanity? Or did that come later?
I would say that there was thoughts of that, but I did not know exactly how it was going to come about. Like, I knew that I was sort of on a right path in terms of teaching, because I
Hmm.
always, even before I guess this awakening, like, I knew I wanted to help others in some way. So
Right.
purpose was always sort of, how can I be of service? How can I
Hmm.
help other people? And through this exploration, I've been able to find what it is I'm good at. I've been able to find sort of my own voice and my own just way of being that actually
Mm.
makes me of service. So I
Yes.
guess you could say the purpose was always connected to that idea of being in service, but I had no idea how to actually put that into practice
Right.
until
Right.
I reached a certain point. And even now, I'm still learning and exploring. Like, I mean, if you
Yeah.
asked me a year ago if I was going to write a book that's really serves as a guidebook, I would have
Yeah.
said, no, that's a lot. I don't know about that. But
Right.
so
Right.
even in looking to the future, like, I don't know exactly how my own
Hmm.
purpose will unfold. I don't know what it's going to
Hmm.
look like down the line, but I know that as long as I'm trusting in myself and trusting that
Yeah.
uh really I feel like I'm almost guided just by the universe, like it's guiding me, and I can
Right.
just put my heart forward, then
Yeah.
it'll continue to manifest in unexpected ways and beautiful ways, really.
Yeah. I mean it's so as you're talking, I can just feel like again with my journey of courageous love now, right? I mean, I feel there's so much courage in that and there's so much love for yourself and you're doing it right now. You're really living in the present moment and that is where you're opening up to everything. So it's like I think as an example, like, I left when I, graduated from college, I took off and went to Europe and did trips around the world. I had foreign
Hmm.
parents, so I traveled in Europe. And so, that seeker and that like wanting to understand and experience life and all of that has been there. And it's interesting, like just listening to you, I have like I have envy because, oh, wow, I wish I would have been so clear and had taken that time to have done those things when I was, your age. I literally had a phone call with my niece this afternoon, who's 18 years old, and she's in
Mhm.
college right now, and obviously doing college online, and dealing with personal things that I won't go
Yep.
into in a podcast because she'll kill me. No, but anyway, but but even like talking about these kinds of concepts with her, you know, no one talked to me about. I mean, my dad was very philosophical, so like I heard a lot of the stuff. He was a yogi and he read a lot of
Mhm.
this type of stuff, so I kind of grew up around it. But if I think about it, I didn't have anybody come to me and talk to me. I was a seeker and I sought it out. And it
Right.
sounds very much like that's exactly, you had an experience and that shook you to your core, and it woke something up in you for you to now be a seeker, to say, okay, I need to, like, I think it was the Celestine Prophecy was like the
Oh, I love
first
that
book
book.
that I came across that was like woke me, and I was like,
Mm.
wait, what is this coincidence thing? And I was on my journey to go to Europe when I started reading it, and I was like 23 years old, right, when I
Mhm.
started. And so if I look at it, I've gone through like phases of these kind of awakenings, and then how can I serve, right? What do I do with this? Because I think that that's the beautiful thing about listening to your podcast, and many that I've been listening to, is there are so many people that are realizing that we are here to be of service to other people. It is not about us. It's not about the shell and the surface layer. It is about the interconnectivity, which is like
Right.
directly like what you've been talking about with your book and everything that you're about, which is why I resonate so much with it. And I think that it's, and that is sowing the seeds of hope, because we feel so separate in a world where we should feel so connected, because we have the internet at our hands. We have
Right.
everything available to us. We are in a world of plenty, but we feel isolated and alone because what we are being fed is not something that is connecting us, right?
Right.
But at the same time, even the things that connect us are totally at our disposal. But you have to have a click, an awakening, to
Mhm.
have the courage to say, oh, wait, this, square box that I'm in actually could be a rectangle or a star or a diamond or whatever, right? I can make it whatever shape I want it, right? So that
Right.
taking that moment to have the courage to step into your individuality, your authenticity, and to seek for answers that are not just handed to you from
Right.
school or from your parents or from society or from religion or whatever, right? And I think that
Right.
that's it's a truth seeker, right?
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
100% resonate with what you're saying. And I think a lot of people, I would say most people in terms of awakening, once you awaken, that seeker it's almost an inevitability, right? And I love the Celestine Prophecy as a book because I think it perfectly represents that almost archetypal journey that we need to go on to sort of discover what is it that's true. I mean, you're right that we've never been more connected as a species, but also disconnected at the same
Disconnected.
time. Like it's
Yeah,
such a paradox because I
it
mean,
is.
here we are, and I mean, I'm in South Dakota, you're in California, and we're talking over the
Mhm.
internet. You can connect with anybody you want online. We can, I mean,
Right.
everything is kind of locked down for the most part, which is a whole nother issue, but there's
Hmm.
so much abundance and there's so much
Hmm.
like plenty, but we've really been programmed into a mindset of lack. We've really been programmed
Hmm.
to uh, be discontented when in reality there's something within all of us that can be of greater service, that is deeply fulfilling, more fulfilling than any sort of material uh,
Hmm.
worship, I guess you could say. Like it's
Hmm.
so,
Hmm.
and I think the discovery of that has to come from that seeking process because we're not
Hmm.
taught from birth, unless, I mean, unless you're raised in this type of environment, in which case, very envious because that is the way to go. Um,
Yes.
but we're not taught to really understand what is our like meaning here. Why are we here? And I mean, you
Right.
can go down so many rabbit holes on that and
Hmm.
discover unpack that question in so many different ways.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's almost unnecessary to unpack that question because you could just say, well, we're here. I want to be the fullest version of myself. I want to explore. I want to find what it is that I'm meant to be doing. And I think everybody has a unique role that they're meant to
Hmm.
serve in. And it's just about
Hmm.
the willingness to step into that and ultimately step out of the box that we've been really we've built
Mm.
around ourselves,
Mm.
and society is kind of placed there, and we kind of just keep stacking it and sturdying it without knowing. And then
Mm-hmm.
but if we're to uncover who it is we really are, that box needs to come crashing down. And that's
Absolutely.
tumultuous. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel good because it's all we've ever
Yeah.
known. But you get to a
Yeah.
point on the seeking journey, or just the journey of self exploration, where
Mm.
there's a deep fulfillment that it's unlike any other fulfillment prior to that. And I
Yeah.
think you just continually build on that and explore that ultimately.
Mm. Absolutely. I have so many things that I'm like bubbling as you're talking. I'm like, oh yes, yes, and this and this and this.
Yeah.
But I want to churn because your book, and
Hmm.
of course your book is all about this journey and about your discoveries and what you've learned, and of course giving back because you're sharing this beautiful philosophy and mysticism and understanding of exactly that. Why are we here and what is our purpose, right? And having that self-reflection and inviting the viewer, the listener, the reader to ask those questions. Why am I here? And why do I do the things that I do? And,
Right.
what is this that I'm looking at? And is this what something I choose consciously to connect with or not connect with, et cetera. Right. So I'd love
Right.
to hear about your journey of, like, as you said, a year ago, you would never have thought you would write a book. How did that birth through this process?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because there was, I would say, like late summer of last year, I originally had the idea of writing a book, and I actually started typing things out, and I was like, oh, I want to talk about like looking inward and all of these concepts. I wanted to incorporate in some kind of book, but it actually really
Hmm.
like stagnated in a lot of ways. And
Hmm.
the for like 2 or 3 months, I was kind of, I would say this was like June, so maybe not late summer. It's probably beginning of summer. It was kind of stagnating. I was like, I don't really know exactly how I'm going to do this. And it was like that for a few months until about September. And I was doing substitute teaching. Like, and during this substitute teaching, it's amazing that the schools were even open. But I would essentially just go and watch a group of kids as they had a teacher who was at home. So I really
Hmm.
was there all to my, like I could do whatever I want on the computer. Like I had free time, I would plan podcasts, but I was like, I really
Hmm.
want to hammer out this book. I just don't know how I'm going to do it. And one of those beautiful little synchronicities came up where I got my coaching certifications. The guy who did that, he sent out an email. He's like, I have this new course called How to Write a Book. And I was like, oh man, all right. Well, I guess and I was like, I know I have to purchase that. I have to go through it. And there was a part of me that was resistant to it. It was like, I want to do this on my own. But I was like, clearly there's something that's
Right.
stagnated. And so
Yeah.
I did that course, and it really helped me sort of hammer out all of what I actually wanted to write, because I had so
Mhm.
much in mind. I had so many
Of
different areas I
course.
wanted to
And that's the
explore.
hard thing is you're kind of like, where do I start?
Right, exactly. And it's like,
What's
how do I
yeah.
actually organize this into something that's
Mhm.
coherent and like makes
Mhm.
sense? And so
Mhm.
I took that step and got it organized, and then the book basically wrote itself. I literally wrote it in about 2 weeks after I had all the
Wow.
organization done, because
Amazing.
I would spend probably, I don't know, 3 hours of the day just writing and typing
Yeah.
what came from the heart, and it was done within 2 to 3 weeks. And so,
That's amazing.
and essentially, it covers a lot of the topics that we've already talked about. It starts out by talking about the concept of interconnectivity and like what is really humanity's natural state. Like what is the ways in
Mhm.
which we're living now collectively, and what would it look like if we explored something different. And through the rest of the book, I essentially, there's and I know you listened to the first two chapters. Once you get to chapter 3,
Mhm.
it's called Awaken Within, and
Mhm.
there's there's activities to actually, the reader engages in these questions of who it is that they are. Like, how are they
Mhm.
attached to certain parts of their identity? What is it that makes them in this like moment? And really
Mhm.
exploring all the different constructs that really make up our society, whether it's
Mhm.
religion or nationality, or the idea of purpose, or the concept of death, and just all, sort of
Mhm.
what is it that people generally define themselves by. And then
Mhm.
how can we connect with something deeper and explore something deeper? How can I
Mm.
connect with a purpose that is currently within that maybe I'm not fully living by? And, I
Mm.
just, through the book, it takes the readers through some questions, through some uh, ideas about certain constructs, and it gets there's free write activities in there, so it's not just reading.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're engaging with the book. It's essentially meant to be a
Fantastic.
guidebook
Like a
to,
workbook, guidebook. Yeah.
right, like a
Amazing.
mini guidebook to really just uncover more about who it is that's within, and the part that we've
Mm-hmm.
really been told to not focus on. So it's really
Right.
about helping people just uncover and wake up a certain part of themselves, like that
Mm-hmm.
awakening that I experienced. How
Mm-hmm.
can we, that awakening be a little bit easier? And here are some constructs that I've explored over the last several years that have
Yeah.
guided me to where I am now. And, if ultimately the goal of it is just to help people sort of reconnect with a deeper part of themselves, and in
Mm.
the end, sort of return to our natural state of
Yeah.
interconnectivity, oneness, love,
Of being human. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. What does it
Yeah.
mean to be human? And how can
Yeah.
we make like a deep contentment and love and heart-centered consciousness more of our baseline frequency? Like, how can we make that, who ultimately what we bring out to the world? So
Mm-hmm.
that's really the purpose of the book, and i'm
Yeah.
i'm really thrilled with how it turned out and how it came about, because it's like my new little creative baby. I have the podcast
Of
over here, and now the book's
course.
out, and I'm like, oh my
Of
gosh.
course.
So
And you also work with people, right? You do
yeah.
coaching, and would you say coaching slash counseling, or
Yeah,
what? Yeah.
I would say coaching. I have this program that I put out. It's like a 4-week life purpose program,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just finishing with one of my clients now, and it's amazing. Like, for example, the first day, we just opened up by reflecting on, like, who is it that I am, and I asked,
Mm-hmm.
do you know, like, what your purpose is, if you could, like, rationalize it? And they were in tears and said no. And now, 4 weeks later, they are starting their own book. So it's
Oh,
unbelievable to
that's
see the
amazing.
transformation
Yeah.
that's occurred. And it's
Yeah.
actually, that program is very much in a line with sort of the message of the book, and that's sort of
Yeah.
where my, I guess you could say, book, podcast, and coaching is really where most of my time goes. And it's
Yeah.
nice because I'm actually able to do that right now, like, full time, and support myself with it, which is
That's
it's kind
amazing.
of a nice feeling. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think too in that it's like a double fold, because of course you are then being of service directly. Not only are you being of service through your podcast, you have like actual one-on-ones or
mhm.
potentially groups, et cetera. And then of course now you have the book, which is going out in kind of another formula. So it's you're hitting all bases. It's really
Yeah,
fantastic.
I guess you could say that.
Really
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah. Wow. That's really commendable. Thing. It's awesome.
I
I
appreciate it.
love
I
it.
appreciate it. And it's
Yeah.
it's definitely like, I don't know. I feel like it's and this is really, it only feels like a beginning for me in a lot of ways.
Mhm,
Like, I feel like
mhm,
these concepts, like, that I write about in the book, maybe five
mhm.
years from now, I'll look back at it and I'll be like, that's amateur stuff. Like, they're like, that was so, I don't imagine I will actually think that, but,
Yeah.
it's meant to sort of be almost just a tool to help growth. And, you
Yeah.
continue this process of growth, because it really is never ending. I mean, I'm on my own
I
journey right now, like, just continuing to
totally.
grow. So,
Totally. I mean, as you said that kind of before when you were telling your personal story around, oh, I was just this simple guy with only a few friends in college and whatever, right?
mhm,
And I think it, for me personally, even in just like going into this journey on my own, asking myself again and again, how can I be of service? And having been an artist for years, and also weaving that in with being a healer, it's pulled me in many directions. So there's been many avenues that I've gone
mhm,
down. But in listening to a lot of the podcasts, and I think that that's what's so beautiful about having these dialogues where you can listen to and have these discussions as well with with more than one people or a round table, et cetera, of different mindsets, because every one of us, of the 7 billion people, are at a different level in their life. There's no two people that are at the same level. And of course, in every podcast I listen to, like you said, I get a little gem that I take away from. And now it like bursts another little opening in my neuronal
Right.
pathways. And now I'm like going over here. So, that is, we are now creating a new story of interconnectivity in the way that we are connecting through this genre, this method, right?
Right.
And I think that that's, I was listening to one yesterday, and it was kind of like, okay, can you tell us in layman's terms, like if you were like, this was someone who never did any spiritual work, what was the basis of X, Y, and Z? And then they kind of give this like ABC of it, right? And I think that it's so important to come back to the basics, because if we think about the basics of compassion, love, empathy, what our humanity needs the most right now, we know that these fundamental basics have been around since the beginning of man, but
Yeah.
it's not a fundamental basic that is in every human being innately, because it's not taught, it's not pushed or educated through the school systems, even through our households. There's so many dysfunctional
Yeah.
avenues that humanity has gone down with, obviously power, control, manipulation, and what that has manifested on the planet, let alone the inner workings of like a family. Like I know I've shared in my podcast of just, the dynamics of being in an alcoholic family, a dysfunctional family that was broken, and all of this type of stuff, and how I navigated myself through that to come out of it being like, I am not going to be an addict. I am not going to be, and
Yeah.
I chose my spiritual path very young. I mean, I think I had my first spiritual experience when I was like 7, I can remember, and then different experiences through my life. And that has definitely always been a calling. And
Mm.
I think that that's obviously why I am the way I am, right?
Yeah.
But getting to the place of like where I wanted to give back, and I think that goes into where love for me is so powerful, because I've always been someone that has just loved so, like just been like, everyone's calling, oh, you're just like this big love bubble, oh, you're this, you're that,
Mm.
like I've had the feedback of it, that it was like naturally there. But then when I really started to kind of break it down and really understanding energetically, like what is that, and how I've healed my own wounds of the past, and family stuff and relationship things, and all of that stuff. But then what is this frequency, this embodiment of love, of self-love, of unconditional love, of humanitarian love, like all these like layers of what love is. And I know you mentioned that just a minute ago, of like these are really like the fundamentals of like being
Yeah.
human is love. And we are so stereotypically prone to think of like, oh, what is love? Oh, it's between a man and a woman. Oh, it's between a
Right.
father and a son. It's like that. I was blessed, I believe, to have gone down the spiritual path and been involved with different communities where it was like, okay, I have a love for humanity. Like I really have a deep love. Like I chose years back not to have children, because I was like, I want to put myself at the service of humanity. Humanity is my child, kind of thing, and
Yeah.
that's like a really big statement to say, but I was passionately feeling that, like, I have to give my energy to save the world,
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
And and I definitely have a really broad imagination. So, the storyteller and the actress in me and the theatrics, can go really broad in that idea. And at the same time, when you think, oh, it's just little old me, how am I going to have an effect on the world? And I
Mm.
think that is where I discovered with the podcasting and the sharing of our innermost thoughts to the world was like, wow, everything affects everything.
Yeah.
We are a ripple effect. We are a little droplet in a pond, and that ripple goes for miles sometimes, right? And it's
Right.
like we don't know who we're going to touch with it. So anyway, I guess my point is just like going back to those simple things of empathy, love,
Right.
connection, compassion, etc., are so fundamental to the basics, right? And then,
Right.
of course, you peel the layers off,
100%. And
whichever avenue you go down. But I would love to invite you to talk about love a little bit, and like, what
yeah,
is your journey with love?
absolutely. I do want to say just really quickly too that
Of
what
course.
you said was so important. And I feel like I had that exact same conversation with David Icke yesterday. Because if you're in the mindset of little old me, what can I do?
Mm,
Everything, the answer is so simple. It's love. It's the changing of perception and taking control of your perception and taking
mm,
control of who it is that you want to be. And something within the spiritual journey, like I feel like we make it so complex sometimes, like we're seeking these
mm,
deep mystical experiences. And, there's nothing wrong with that by any means, but the
Mm-hmm.
answer is super simple. It's love, it's compassion, it's oneness. It's
Mm-hmm.
simply not acquiescing to things that go against what you believe in ultimately, and not being of harm, and being of service. It's really that simple, and just taking
Mm-hmm.
control of your perception. And I
Mm-hmm.
definitely resonate with what you're saying. Always being a very loving person. I've always been the same way. I've never been confrontational by any means. I was always, people in, like, I would say, my friends in high school used to think they're like, you're so innocent and like kind. Like how has the world not corrupted you? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm just being myself. That's just me, I guess. But I've always been a very like nurturing person
Mm-hmm.
myself. And I
Mm-hmm.
recognize that quality definitely very early. Um, and it's interesting because you don't think of like what is like the I almost viewed it at first in a not in I don't want to say in a negative context, but like I started going to the gym and I wanted to get like big muscles, and I almost viewed this like nurturing
Mm-hmm.
quality as like a negative in a way, because it's like, is that what a male is supposed to do in society? Like, we learn all of these
Mm-hmm.
different like ideas of what a male is supposed to be, I guess. And but
Right.
I think somebody who is now I've come to learn that somebody who is truly living in their masculine energy in a healthy way has the qualities of, one, being like, if we're talking archetypes, like the king archetype, where you can lead, you have no problem speaking up, you're willing to confront what it is that you may be situated with. But then it's
Mm-hmm.
that combination of also having the love and the
Yeah.
compassion in the nurturing qualities. And I think I was always very connected with those loving and compassionate qualities, from a
Mm-hmm.
young age. Confrontation was hard for me. I didn't,
Mm-hmm.
as I mentioned, I was always very shy. I didn't like speaking up. I didn't uh, I didn't want to be a burden per se and have to
Mm-hmm.
fight for something that I believed in. If somebody did something, and even if I disagreed with it, I probably wasn't going to speak up because I was too afraid to speak my voice. But
Mm.
I always showed people uh, unconditional love. Like, I felt like that was
Yeah.
something that, in kindness, that was it just felt like something that was so simple, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand why more people didn't practice that. And
Mm-hmm.
I received, I wouldn't say I was ever bullied, but that, I wanted to be in
Yeah.
certain social groups, but I was too shy and too all of this, and I viewed it
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes as like a rejection, in certain cases. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I would take things personally, but I would still send out love and try and be kind and all of that. So,
Right.
and it's interesting. I've really had to sort of find that balance of, okay, how can I continue to love, but how can I hone in on also, the divine masculine within, and really harness uh, all of the energies in an optimal way. But
Mm.
I think love is something in particular that, as a society, we've really uh, we have a we I don't I think most people know what love is, but it's how often have they felt like
Mm-hmm.
true unconditional love. And
Mm.
I think a lot of people think they have felt that, but maybe they haven't, because, like you were
Mm-hmm.
saying, we've put this picture of love as something that is based on conditions, or it's only
Right.
romance, or it's, you're expected to love these people but not these people. And so
Right.
we get this sort of tainted picture of conditional love. And
Mm-hmm.
I think there were certain parts of myself that was within that as well. I mean, I certainly held judgments against people for certain things. Like, I was never mean, but I would,
Mm-hmm.
it was natural to just hold, it's natural to hold judgments because that's what we're taught to
Yeah.
do. But it's like,
Yeah.
how can we look past those? And that's something I've had to learn on this journey. And I
Mm.
still notice if a judgmental thought comes up. It's not like they go, like, there's still layers of conditioning there, but it's like you
Yeah.
catch it and you're like, oh, well, that's not ideal. Let's practice unconditional love here. And
Yeah.
I think love. like the name of your podcast states, it takes
Mm,
courage. Like it's not something that uh, we will just embrace unconditional love wholeheartedly, because it requires that
mm,
breaking down of who it is that, one, we think we are, and
right.
two, how we think the world operates. Like unconditional love, it plays on a whole nother frequency. Like it's a lot
Mm,
of the dominant frequency of society. I mean, we see it manifesting in terms of division and fear. And that's where, that's just a macrocosm of what's happening at most
mhm.
individual levels.
Yeah,
Unconditional love, that's up here. And that all that stuff is down there. So you really need to
right.
raise yourself in order to be with this unconditional love. Um, but I think more and more people are waking up to it. I mean, I've
Yeah,
encountering more people who are living in this, and that's sort of I think that's going to be what the answer is moving forward. Like that's the
yeah,
message, that's the timeless wisdom that every single person can connect with and
right.
really live by. I think that's that's sort of our, I mean, if we look at the course of human history, it really is only in like shamanic tribes that have sort of tapped into this as their dominant frequency. In most of human
Mm,
history, there's enslavement, there's wars, there's division,
right.
there's hierarchy. And I think we're reaching a point where we're evolving, and evolution is a natural process, change is a natural process, and I think it's going to come in the form of our level of consciousness. And I think we're evolving to
Absolutely.
be a heart-centered
Mm,
species of unconditional love. And it
mhm.
almost feels inevitable. And I think a lot of the chaos that we're seeing manifest is just sort of the old system of
Yeah.
doing,
Mhm.
giving its sort of last stand, if you will. Like it's like, you can't leave me behind. Let's ramp up the authoritarianism. Let's ramp up the
Right.
fear. Let's get people really in this baseline of fear. But I think there's a lot of people who are realizing, I mean, that's not fulfilling. That's not the
Right.
way. And I think
Because fear
yeah,
is the opposite of love, right? I mean,
it's yeah,
it, yeah, we know that we're bound to go there because we know humanity is evolving, and hence why there's such a throwdown on the fear bombs, because it's
yeah,
like they're like, no, you can't enter that realm, otherwise we won't have control over you anymore.
right. Exactly.
Hmm.
But in the
Hmm.
space of unconditional love, you realize there is no need for control. There is no
Yeah,
need for manipulation. And it's like you
yeah,
just leave those things behind. So, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I'm at a place personally now where I've never, I mean, despite what's going on in the world, I've never been in a better just space, whether, mentally, physically, spiritually. But I've
Mm,
also never had as much hope and feelings of love.
mm,
And
mm.
and it's, and I say that, and I talk about it being an amazing time to be alive. And you really need to pick your audience with who you say that with, because some people are like, "Are you mad? Like, what,
Right,
look at what's going on in the world." But it's
right.
you get to realize that true freedom is unconditional love. Like it's breaking
Hmm.
out of the paradigm of old into something far greater, where it doesn't
Hmm.
matter what's going on down there or what sort of measures are being implemented. Like nobody has control over you because you're up here, and that's all
Right,
down there. It's all about energy, it's all about frequency. And uh,
totally.
it's it's really just a beautiful place to be. And that's the message I'm trying, I'm hoping to get out and trying to spread. And I think that you're doing a
Amazing.
fantastic job with it on your podcast, and
Yeah.
spreading
It,
that.
it's interesting. Something just came up for me as you were saying it. And if I think about it, judgment, fear, all of these things that are going are limitations.
Mm,
There is limitation there. And as you just said, when we can be in unconditional love, you have total freedom. And I just saw like a little post today. It was like, freedom doesn't come for free, right?
mm,
You have to have courage to be able to step into that place where you make the choice that I'm not going to be limited and controlled. Like we talk about taking your sovereignty or taking your power back, right? I'm not going to be controlled by these limitations of being locked inside a house or having to wear a
Right.
mask or whatever these limitations are, because a limitation is showing me that I can't be fully myself and express. And I definitely went through that like period of like, get this thing off my face, I'm gonna
Yeah.
like, freak out, lion in a cage syndrome, right? But then
Right.
it was kind of like, okay, wait, we have to reflect, to look at all these people that have been locked in jail cells and they come out, with these like spiritual awakened, or monks that go into caves or whatever. It's not about the external again, and we go back to that again, because again, we look so much at the way we look, or our hairstyle, or this or that, or our material things. It's not about the external, because that interconnectivity, when we get in it, you see that it's infinite and there is
Yeah.
no limitation. But as soon as you dive into, the fear and the judgment and the criticism and the loss of hope, you put the limitation on it. And that just
Right.
came up now when you were talking. And I just thought, oh yeah, it's
Absolutely.
so much a part of this, like, transference into love, into unconditional love. and
Yeah.
and I also wanted to ask you, what about self-love? Like,
Mm.
what would your words be to someone who is like, self-love, what does that mean, like?
Right. No,
how,
definitely.
what is your journey with, or yeah, with
Uh,
self-love?
it's interesting. It's you don't realize you're not engaging in self-love until you go through this sort of like awakening process, and how much you
Mm,
neglect your own needs, how much you
mm,
uh, give up your own sovereignty, how much you live in a space of limitations and lack. And
mm,
the self-love it's a never-ending journey. I mean, I'm at a place now where I feel like I have uh, been able to build up so much self-love for all who I am, what I'm doing, because I feel deeply connected to it. But it was definitely a journey in itself. I had to learn over the last several years, like, what are the practices that can, one, what is like actual self-love? Like, what does that
mhm.
look like? And that's the reclaiming of your own sovereignty. That's setting
Right.
up necessary boundaries that you need to set up, whether it be for yourself, giving yourself the idea of discipline. I think a lack of
Mhm,
discipline is ultimately just a lack of self-love.
mhm,
So it can be personal in terms of boundaries, but then with others as well in your relationships. Are we engaging in relationships that are toxic, are detrimental? And you
mhm,
don't have to. If so, and we've all had people in our lives that, uh, I don't want to say bring us down, but it's just there's something not working in that. It's like, okay, what kind of
mhm,
boundaries do I need for me to put up in to put up in
mhm,
that sort of relationship? And
mhm,
you don't necessarily have to go and cut it off completely, but what can I do for myself in this situation here? And
mhm,
it's really been about exploring all the different areas, for me in my own life. What am I doing creatively to express myself? Am I
mhm,
speaking up for myself when I feel, um, I guess, if somebody is talking down to me, do I feel threatened? Am I willing to set up a boundary and speak up for myself and try and
mhm,
practice unconditional love for this person anyways? And
mm,
I feel that ultimately how we are going out into the world and interacting with others and viewing the world, it's just a reflection of ourselves. So if we can build up enough love for who it is that we are internally, and
mm.
the first step in that is just finding contentment with wherever we're at. I mean, we've
Right.
all had certain challenges, we've all had struggles, we've all had things in our life that presented a tremendous challenge, and during
Mm,
it was may have been awful and you don't want to go through it, but it got you to where you are right now. So the willingness to find contentment, to let go of any grudges or judgments you're holding on to about yourself or others, um, finding contentment for your being now, and then committing to practices that can help you just grow and be a better
yeah.
person, and get that commitment to service to
Mm,
humanity, to a higher power far beyond the individual self, and just coming back to that space of interconnectivity and oneness. And
mm,
I think a lot of people talk about self-love, we talk about uh, all of these concepts, but I feel we view it like when it's talked about in mainstream, it gets put into a material lens. So it's about really
mhm.
finding
Mm,
deep self-love and reflecting on what needs to be reflected on, not burying anything anymore, and
Mm.
forgiving yourself. I think forgiveness is such a huge aspect of it too. I mean, we've
Oh
all
my
done
gosh,
things.
totally.
We've all done things,
Totally.
you know,
Oh,
whether it's for the self.
self-forgiveness, man.
Yeah.
Woo, it's the biggest one, I think.
Oh yeah, and it all comes
Mm,
because we're taught to live in the space of lack,
mm,
of
right.
limitation, and ultimately, when we do something or we wrong somebody or we've all made mistakes. Like mistakes are part of growth. Like
Mhm,
we're not going to not make mistakes. I mean, even
mhm,
now, it's more about just the recognition and awareness of mistakes. Like I'm still prone to them. I'm only human, but the willingness to not hold on to shame, or the willingness to just let
mm.
go and heal, because
Yeah,
really with shame or with uh, the critical thinking about, like, just critical of ourselves and talking down about ourselves, we're really just
mhm,
poisoning our own well. Like
yeah,
it's not doing us any good to hold on to those. And I mean, we've been conditioned to hold on to them. So it's not like you can just snap your fingers and let them
mhm,
go. Like you do
mhm.
have to reflect on them. Maybe you can do journaling on them. Feel the emotions that are associated with whatever it is inside, and a willingness to just heal it. Like if we don't feel it, we will never heal it. And that's a journey
Beautiful.
I've
Mm,
had to really go through myself, and it's not easy. And I think there's still things that certainly I can unpack further. Like I realize, like I think I unpacked something. I'm like, good, we're healed from that. We're ready to go. A couple months later, something triggers that again, and it's like, oh my
mhm.
gosh, I thought we were
It's
all done
still
here.
there.
Like, come on, I thought we were done. Like, can you just like stop feeling this way? So just
Totally.
just the willingness to
Mm,
continually embrace that and acknowledge
yeah,
that, but in that process, like the willingness to trust yourself to find like contentment in the now, in the
yeah,
presence, that we're here now, and every choice we take in for the rest of today, for tomorrow, the rest of
yeah,
this week, moving forward, all of our choices have uh, consequences, and we can make those choices for the betterment of ourselves, to continue to learn to love ourselves. And you
yeah,
can choose to love yourself here and now. It just starts with the willingness to say, I am willing to love myself, and
yeah.
making that an affirmation, if you will. And
Mm,
meditating on that, writing it down, being with it, truly embodying it. Self
mm.
love is not distracting from what you may be feeling, which, I see people post about self love and they're binging Netflix. Like, nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with binging Netflix once in a while. Like, it's fine, but that's not active self love. We need
Right.
to just be active in the willingness to truly feel what we need to feel. And
Yeah.
it's definitely been a discovery process in that for me. Like it's not
Yeah.
something that I learned in one day. Like
Yeah.
there's no crash course on self-love, if you will. But
Right. No, no, and it's interesting too because and in asking that question, I had a reflection of it was a few years back, and I remember talking to a friend and being like, "Oh yeah, I was thinking of doing this workshop to help women, understand what self love is because I think there's a lot of." And he's kind of like looked at me and I was like, "So what are you all going to be like, And I was like,
right.
like huh is what and that's for it's a perfect idea of like where people go to when you talk about like the idea of taking care of yourself and nurturing yourself. And people, you ask a woman, oh, self-love is like me having a bath, which of course that's all great, or getting a massage, or it's a physical thing. But like going down to, like as you said, like really making these decisions in your mind of like, how do I protect myself, how do I navigate through this and this to give myself the best feeling possible. And I
Mm,
think that for me has been a huge part of my journey, is because I I was just talking to my niece about this earlier. Like, I've always been a yes person. I've always been someone that was a
yeah.
people pleaser and wanted to make sure that I was the last one on the list because I wanted to make sure everyone else was happy first. I'm the harmonizer. So the healer in me came in, but then I kind of became codependent because I was like constantly taking care of all the broken people around me, as
Right.
opposed to like protecting myself and knowing what my boundaries were. And it's only in the last like decade that I've really started to understand like what it is to say no and to put a boundary down. And even in the last year, 2020 was even a bigger step into that at a spiritual level, and at like in many with family members and all that, because of the, the heightened energies going on. But it's such a fascinating reflection of what is self-love. Like truly, like is it really just taking time to have a nap in the afternoon? Or I remember people over the course of last year saying, if you need to sleep more, just sleep more. There's a lot of things hitting our nervous system right now,
Yeah.
to take the time for yourself. So, or is it to have like you said, have the discipline? Because I think in order to get to freedom, you have to have discipline.
Yeah.
You can't have no structure and have chaos and then have freedom. Of course, there
Right.
is some chaos in freedom, but you have to have a structure and some discipline to get to freedom. So
Right.
it's the same way with self-love. It's like, okay, what am I going to do today to give myself something that's going to nurture my soul,
Right.
or nurture my body, or nurture my mind, or, et cetera.
Right.
So
And it
yes,
can be those physical things. Like it can be that bath.
totally,
Every once in a while, it
totally,
can be that Netflix binge. Like it's
totally.
not like you can never do those things. So it's
Right,
like
right.
just that. I think that balance, like you were saying, that discipline
Absolutely.
and just the knowing. It's like, okay, I'm gonna watch Netflix today, and that's fine. I know
And choose it
that's
wholeheartedly. Yeah.
exactly. And not feeling down about it, not feeling shame
Yeah.
about it, just
Yeah.
embracing all that
It's
is really.
so I just literally had a flashback. Was a dancer for many years, and I remember a dance teacher of mine in my early 20s that she was like a very famous dance teacher in
Mhm.
California, and I was taking her class, and we're doing the choreography, and she's showing us how to do it, and she puts the music on, and we all do the choreography, and then she stops the music. She's like, "Okay, you guys, let me just tell you something. If I put down the most delicious piece of chocolate cake in front of you and you're just like, oh, I don't know if I can eat it. Oh, I'm going to gain weight." And then it's just like, look, if you're going to eat a piece of chocolate cake, go for it 200%, enjoy it,
Yes.
have this full experience. And she's like, and that is exactly what I want you to do with this choreography. She's like, that choreography is the chocolate cake. Don't sit there and be timid and do it half-assed. Like put your whole heart and soul and put everything into it. And I think that like that little teaching right there has stayed with me with so many things in life, because I was just like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do
Yes.
this whole heart, full force in every way, So yeah, yeah.
No,
It's
definitely. I mean, I got a plate of cookies downstairs, and I've had plenty of them today, and I'm just like, well, that's fine. I'm not gonna have cookies every day, but I have them, so I'm going to eat
right,
them, and I'm not going to
right.
feel shame about that. Even though I
Exactly.
know if I eat too many cookies in life, it could come back to bite me. But that's not it. It's all about the
Right,
discipline. It's about the balance
right.
and the
The
love and the
mindset
nurture.
around it for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Oh, beautiful. So we've just come up to an hour.
Wow, that goes
I
quick.
know, really fast. Really, I was like, wow, we got through a lot of things here. But I mean, it's beautiful because you touched on courage, you touched on love, and you touched on now and being present. And that for me is like such a through line with truly with everything I'm trying to share with people. And
Mm,
I think you are like such a wonderful example of someone who's inspired me so much in my journey to come to doing a podcast. And of course, you're inspiring people every day and opening up narratives and conversations that are definitely stretching and expanding the mind. And I would love to hear from you about your book, where people can find it,
yeah.
and anything else you might want to share about it. Please let us know.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, thank you for those kind words. I mean, it's very assuring in what I do.
Aw.
So, and you're doing a fantastic job with your podcast and getting this message out. And, it's been
Mm,
such a wonderful conversation for me to, learn from and grow from, because these are the conversations we need to be having. And so it's been
mm.
fun to be on here and take part in it. And
Yay.
uh, the book can be found, I guess. I mean, I personally don't shop on Amazon, but it is on Amazon. So if you shop there and you're willing to like not feel shameful about buying something on Amazon, you can go to Amazon. You can just type in the Story of Interconnectivity, or you can type in my name, and it's the first thing that pops up. I don't have anything else on Amazon. So it'll be
That's the
right
book
there.
sitting behind you, right? On
Oh
over
yeah,
your right
yeah, it's right
shoulder.
over here.
I
I got
saw
it
it
right
there and I was
here.
like, oh, you got to show the book. It's so
Here it
cute.
is.
I love the
So,
cover.
Story of Interconnectivity.
Mm.
As you can see, it's not a huge book. It's pretty small. It is 150 43 pages, so it's not long, and there's some, reflective activities in there. It's also on Barnes and Noble website if you want to go there. It's again same thing, Story of Interconnectivity, and
Amazing.
yeah. So I would
And
encourage people to check it out, and if you
yay.
like it, let me know. Like, just send me a message on Instagram or something, and say, "Hey, I got your book," or if you have questions on it. Like, I always
Yeah.
love like making new connections and interacting people like from these podcasts and from just I
Yes,
love making new
totally.
connections. It's so fun.
Yes,
So
it
come
is
say
very
hi.
fun. And where can people find you online?
Yeah, so I mean, I have my website, evanmcdermod.org. I mean, and that has info about my podcast. It has, I need to put a section for my book up there. I haven't done that. So I'm going to do that. So you'll find the book on there because I'm going to go and do that. Discipline. I'll get that done. And then I have my coaching programs on there as well. So you can always check those out if those are calling. And then I'm on Instagram at Evan McDermod, or also at the Fifth Dimension Podcast. I'm wearing, for those who, if I don't know if there's going to be a video of this, but I'm wearing a Fifth Dimension
Yes,
sweatshirt.
there
So,
will be.
so if those watching the video, it's the nice little logo right there. For those just on the audio, I mean, you can search the Fifth Dimension, and it's got a little mountain. It's got my name. So, I mean, you can find my podcast on all podcast platforms. But yeah, if you want to connect with me on social media, just come on over to Instagram and give me a follow. I'll follow back. We can chat. We can talk about whatever you want.
And
Um, yeah.
you're on YouTube also, right?
And I'm on YouTube. I have my YouTube
On
channel.
YouTube.
I
Yes.
almost never promote my YouTube channel. I do have a YouTube channel, so head on over there.
Awesome. That's great. Oh, super, Evan. This has been such a lovely conversation, and I know we could continue, I'm sure, for easily
Oh
for
yeah,
another hour.
easily. This could
So
easily
much to
become a
talk
Joe
about.
Rogan podcast where it's three and a
Yes,
half hours,
totally.
and it's like, oh yeah,
Right.
easily.
Well, I really appreciate your time to be here on this afternoon here in La La Land. And where are you right now?
I am in South Dakota, so
South Dakota.
I'm actually heading on out to.
Okay.
I'm a little bit afraid about this. It's like another, like, if we're talking about the journeys, right, where you go
Hmm.
somewhere new. I'm heading on over to Africa soon, so I'm gonna, and so
Wow.
that'll be exciting. So y'all can catch
Oh,
me
that's
in
amazing.
Tanzania, and I'll, yeah. So that'll be.
Tanzania. Why Tanzania? Where has this all
I
come
have
from?
no
I know
idea.
we're
I have.
adding on more to the podcast, but I want to
Hon-
know.
Honestly, I have no clue why. It's sort of like a calling, and I'm just like,
That's
I know,
amazing.
and I've been seeing things about it all over the place. I'm like, I just need to go. Like, I just need to go. I just need to send it. And so I do all my work online anyways. Like, I can just do my work.
That's
Got a nice little
amazing.
Airbnb booked right outside Serengeti, so we'll head on out there and
Wow.
explore a little bit. It's
S-
one of those like things where you just like send it. You don't know exactly why, and
Yeah,
then you learn and you grow and experience
totally.
from it. So.
See, guys, courageous. This is what you want.
Oh,
Take risks in life,
I was
man.
gonna
Be
say, trust me,
courageous.
it's taking a lot of courage. The mind has had all of those thoughts
Oh,
of
of
like,
course.
you shouldn't go. We're comfortable here. This is fine. Like, so,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah.
Oh, well,
So
that's going to be amazing. So, any plan of like when?
yeah, next week on Wednesday.
No, really?
On
Oh, that's
Wednesday. So
amazing. So the next time, maybe we'll have you on the show. You'll have like, African sounds in the background,
yeah,
birds and
yeah,
and,
we got the
and
African
whatnot.
drums going.
Maybe in
Yeah,
the
we'll have
jungle or
elephants
in the
outside.
That is amazing. Oh, well, I cannot wait to hear more of this adventure, and I'm so excited for you. This is
Oh,
really
thank you.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, guys.
it's exciting. It's exciting. Definitely, but I will admit the
Yeah.
fear is there, but the excitement is overtaking the fear. So just
Amazing.
going with the flow.
Amazing. I actually really quick on that note, I anxiety and excitement actually have the same response in the body.
Mm,
So you have to just tell your brain if you have fear, like that kind of anxiety, you're like, I'm just excited. I'm just excited. Instead of
yes.
like, oh my God, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. Right. Like
Right.
it's the same response in the body. So just gotta like
Exactly.
verbally
Just a
like say, no,
little
I'm not
shift.
afraid. I'm just really excited. Ah.
Exactly. That set a little shift. All about
Yes.
taking back your perception, controlling it.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, that's awesome, Evan. Really. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna wrap this up with Sowing the Seeds of Hope with Evan McDermod. This has been an amazing hour plus podcast, and I will see you soon Evan, and I'm going to listen to your most recent ones, which I'm really looking forward to. And yeah, everyone, please go find Evan on the Fifth Dimension and keep in touch with his journeys.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
so
for
much,
having me on. It
Evan.
was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Likewise. Hello, all you beautiful listeners. It is that time for a little shameless self-promotion. If you've enjoyed this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could subscribe and rate and possibly review down below. So whatever your podcast listening app is, there is usually an area where you can leave a review of what you thought. Even just a few words can make a huge difference. And as I am new to podcasting, it will make even a bigger difference to just get the word out there and also see what you thought. Thanks so much for your support, and keep on listening.